The New York Knicks just got great Eastern Conference news. Let's talk about it. My name is Paul. This is Big Apple Sports. Tune in daily for Giants and Knicks content. Football season's almost here. Basketball season's right around the corner. I'm going to be keeping you up to date on all the latest news, insights, analysis. So don't miss out. Hit the subscribe button. Does me a huge solid. And then might as well like it. Maybe even get alerts on up to you, because I got a lot more Knicks and Giants content coming. So, looking at the upcoming season in the Eastern Conference, no Jason Tatum, no Tyrese Halliburton, you all know that. Most people expect this to be a two-horse race between the Cavaliers and the Knicks. At the end of this video, I'll kind of dive in a little bit to an important update between those two teams. But first, I want to highlight one team that I think could potentially trip up those top two teams if everything went the right way. And then I'm going to tell you why I don't think it's going to go the right way. So, the Pistons, the Magic, young up-and-coming teams. I think they're super talented. But I think at the end of the day, I'll throw the Hawks in there too. They're just not quite ready to compete with the best teams in the East. But one team that does have the veteran talent, if they can just be healthy, is the 76ers. So, before you laugh me off for that, Joel Embiid, as injured as he may be, when he plays, is a top 5 player in the NBA. Paul George, same thing. When he plays, he's not a top 5 player, but he's a really good player. Tyrese Maxey has turned into a star on that team. And then obviously they had a top 5 pick in the draft this year, so they've added even more young talent. And I think that is a team where if they put it all together, they could be a threat. But everything we have heard in the offseason leads to the fact that they are not going to put it all together. If you look at Joel Embiid and Paul George's offseason, you see nothing but injury this, injury that. Paul George had surgery on his left knee last month. The last time I think we saw him, he was walking into a club and he had a big old knee brace on. They're not expecting him to start at the beginning of the season. Then you go into Joel Embiid. He is looking like there's a good chance he doesn't start at the beginning of the season. And he's obviously been struggling with injury. There's some Sixers fans saying that his contract was a huge mistake. And these two guys, even with the extended rest of the offseason, they're just in recovery mode still. They haven't been able to get better. They haven't been able to get into basketball shape, get bigger, faster, stronger. They're just trying to get their knees and their backs and these are two old men who, instead of trying to get better, are just trying to physically recover from last season. And then something crazy about Paul George too. I don't know if any of you guys saw this stat, but John Wall, absolute legend, retired this past week. His retirement makes Paul George the last remaining member of the 2010 draft class. So that just kind of puts into perspective how old these guys are getting, and they just continue to struggle with injury. And I don't want to sit here and celebrate their injuries. I feel terrible for them, especially Joel Embiid. Dude probably could have been a top 5 player of this generation if he could just stay healthy. So I do feel bad for the guy, and I'm not sitting here rooting for their injuries, but I do think this is a team that if they put it together could put a little bit of a scare into the Knicks, and that's just not going to happen. Because, beyond those two guys, obviously Maxey's good and he's getting ready, but Quentin Grimes is expected to be a big part of the team, but they still haven't even signed him yet, which, the closer we get to the season, that leaves the possibility of him potentially missing some of their camp. Obviously, the chemistry is probably not going to be great. He's not happy with the front office there. They're kind of saying even like eventually odds are he's going to end up as a 76er, whether that be him just signing his qualifying offer. It kind of seems like we're heading that way, or maybe they find a way to agree to something else. But they're saying the likely option is that Grimes is going to be traded this year. And like I think instead of this team being a potential threat in the Eastern Conference, this is going to end up being a longer rebuild for them. I don't see Embiid or Paul George ever being, where they could potentially be if they could get healthy. And I think, as we've kind of talked about this offseason, it's Knicks or Cavs in the East. And as I promised earlier in the video, a big potential new part of this conflict in the East is going to be Malik Beasley. I just posted a video about Malik Beasley this weekend. I'll link it at the end of the video here. I think he would fit in perfectly on the Knicks. As I've said before, the one thing the Knicks really lacked last season, and I think it's what tripped them up in the Indiana series, is their bench depth. So adding a career 40% three-point shooter, somebody who's still decently young, under 30, and has played in the playoffs in big-time games and hit big-time shots. And, if there were an injury, he's somebody who, I think he averaged 16 points a game for the Pistons last year. So he's somebody who, say Brunson went out for a month with an injury, he can kind of carry a bigger offensive load than maybe some of these other backups on the Knicks can. So I would love to see him in the orange and blue rather than the Cavs stealing him away. So I hope the Knicks make a big move soon. And then just looking at the Eastern Conference odds like I like to do, they got the 76ers fifth here behind the Magic and Hawks and above the Pistons, who really pushed the Knicks in the playoffs and are an improving young team. So I think that kind of just shows you the respect that people have for the 76ers if they can be healthy. Because they know, if Embiid is healthy and Paul George is healthy and they have Maxey and VJ Edgecombe, their new rookie, and Quentin Grimes ends up coming back, this could be a scary team. But then they still have them kind of well below the top four in the East, knowing that that's probably not going to happen. So, Knicks fans, give me your takes. Are you team Malik Beasley? Are you team Ben Simmons or Russell Westbrook? I am not. Who do you have any fear of the 76ers, or do you think Embiid and Paul George are done and they're probably not even going to make the playoffs? I always like to hear from you guys, so let me know. And then just hit the subscribe button on the way out. Got a lot more Knicks content coming in. The season is just around the corner, so don't miss out.